I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
Hey, welcome to Turtlesmith Live. I am Scott Hess. I am a tax accountant and business consultant. Along with me is John Barton.
And I am a serial entrepreneur and designer and owner of JB Cases.
Yeah, and a maker. You make cases. Yeah.
We make cases, pool cue cases. I make messes.
There you go.
Scott cleans them up.
Sometimes, so depending on the mess. Yeah. Well, our goal here at Turtlesmith is to help people start small businesses, develop small businesses, increase and grow. Kind of our motto is grow with Turtlesmith. We offer a lot of services here to people in the Oklahoma City area. So if you are having a business here and you need some help, give us a shout. But here on our show, we like to try to answer questions and then kind of recap our podcast, which we do once a week. So last week's episode, we talked a little bit about I.C.E., which is causing quite the stir amongst our country right now. It's a disaster.
Isn't it interesting that you say the word ICE and people just know what we're talking about at this point?
Well, yeah, I think in this context, you know, it's either meth or a bunch of crazy people deporting everyone. But in this context, yeah, we're talking about the immigration enforcement.
Wait, is meth called ICE? I thought it was called glass.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of terms. I think you
This
can
is
also
from
call
Breaking
it crank,
Bad, right?
Yeah, speed, all that stuff.
Oh, I thought crank was something else. Well, now we're going off on a tangent.
You know what? I'm not a user.
Me
so
either.
I don't know.
Me either.
I stopped
I don't
with
know.
weed and some mild psychedelics.
But anyway, yeah, so ICE is what we talked about last week, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and how that was affecting small business.
Yeah, and while we are a little bit political, our main focus is how it's affecting small businesses and the economy, which it's just going to be a disaster for a lot of small businesses. Construction, agriculture, they're going to really have labor shortages.
Well, they are, and that's what's being reported out there. And there's a lot of other things going on that we talked about last week, which is, for example, consumption is down.
Big time. Big time. One of my clients has a Spanish speaking service that he offers as a part of his educational platform. They teach Spanish speakers in their native language. And for months, he's been completely booked solid. Like he had to book 3 months at a time. And last month he had 2 customers.
And a lot of that is not just people who are in the United States illegally.
No, it's legal
It
immigrants
is
who are
legal
just
immigrants who
too
are
afraid.
scared.
Mhm.
They are literally scared to go out.
Because they don't want to get hassled or accidentally detained, which has happened a bunch of times.
Like we just talked about this, like, what did you say? Like they had a situation where they had 30 Native Americans
This has been happening all over the
indigenous
country.
people.
Yeah, the one article I read said 30, but I was reading there in all states, people are reporting that indigenous Native Americans are being detained.
Why
and
on earth
threatening
would that happen? Like what
deportation.
possible thing could be there that is causing immigration and customs enforcement to go after indigenous Americans?
They look Hispanic
Oh.
and just
wait,
chuck 'em
color
in.
of their skin.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
okay.
profiling
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
got
Were you
you.
making a joke there? And I missed it.
I
thought you were
have
legitimately
to.
leading up a question.
I for once in my life, as a white guy, I am so glad that I have not been working on my tan.
There you go. Good Lord.
But
well,
yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous,
yeah,
right?
It's out of control.
It's scare tactics.
Mhm.
You know, I have these debates online about this, and people are like, "Oh, ICE is only going after the hard criminals." No, they're not.
Well,
They're literally in Home Depot parking lots and Walmart parking lots harassing people and saying, "Where were you born?"
That is what ICE is for, though, is to go after the criminal element that comes over here. And unfortunately, there is a large criminal element, and we do need some type of enforcement to get rid of those people.
Okay.
But the quota that has been established by the federal government is what, 3,000 arrests
That's
a day?
what's been reported.
Yeah, they're not actively pursuing and investigating 3,000 criminals a day. Like you said, they're rounding up people at Home Depot or Walmart parking lots, or they're going to the courthouse for people who are getting their immigration and just arresting them there.
So check this out. I'm on a Facebook group where they highlight kind of like Trump supporters who are regretting their vote.
Yeah.
Okay. And I came across a story today where this guy is on there pleading for help, and he says, my wife has been arrested at our what we thought was going to be our final immigration hearing, where she was going to get approved for staying in the United States. I don't know the circumstances behind this, right? Like why his wife has to go to an immigration hearing. My wife is a naturalized citizen, and we didn't have hearings; we just had appointments.
Right.
But apparently, what happened is, at least as reported by the Post that I read, is they went to this immigration hearing, and the agents basically just took his wife into custody. And I highlighted this on our last episode as something that they're doing. Basically, what's happening is the government says, one part of the government, the Department of Justice, says this person is here illegally. And I suppose the person is applying for asylum or something. Again, I don't know the details on this married couple who are going to a hearing right about this. So I don't know what.
Well, he may have used the wrong word too. Maybe it was an appointment as well. But yeah,
right. It might have been an appointment. But if it's a hearing, here's what they're doing. The government is basically going in. Now, normally the government would say, we're on the side of we don't think this person should be here. And let's just speak about it in terms of an asylum case, because that's the one I know about. So the asylum seeker would say, well, I am applying for asylum, and here's why I think I deserve it, and I should stay in the United States, right? So the government basically goes in, and they're using a tactic where they drop the case. They say, we no longer have an objection to this person being here, right? Or we no longer have an objection to them applying for asylum.
Right.
But then they arrest the person.
Right. Because right when they drop the case, they're illegally.
Right. Right. Even before the judge has a chance to say something or do something. That's why there was a case, and I want to say it was in Minnesota, but I'm not sure, where ICE arrested a judge who basically squirreled somebody, like let somebody go out a side door to avoid being arrested by ICE when they did this tactic. So the point that I was making here is that no, they are not just going after the hard criminals, They are literally using every possible tactic to go after what are otherwise peaceful, hardworking people to try to fill this stupid ass quota that they've got, And this is the consequence of this is that it is harming business
big time.
And lots of small businesses, because of the fact that, like we just said, consumption is down. People are afraid. People are literally going out and buying groceries for their neighbors because their Hispanic neighbors
don't want to go.
Don't want to go out. Like they literally don't want to go.
Well, so there are something like 8 million undocumented workers. And I saw estimates ranging all the way up to like 15 million, but a lot of the more reliable sources said probably around 8 million.
Well, I think we should revise that upwards, because I looked into that this week too, and it's supposed to be somewhere around 12 million.
Okay, so 12 million, and they pay something like close to 100 billion in taxes. Not just we always talk about they're not paying their share of income taxes, which some of them who are 1099 if they're not filing, that is correct. But we also think about property taxes, sales taxes, as well as income tax. So of all the taxes that these undocumented workers are paying, it accounts for about $100 billion. And if we have this policy, all that money is going to be gone. We're not going to have that. Consumer spending is way down. You're going to deport them. They're going to lose their property, so no more property tax from them. There's not 12 million people looking to rebuy property. We're not going to have 12 million people replace that workforce either. It's just going to be a disaster for our entire economy. Your salad's going to cost $45 because they're going to have to bring in automated infrastructure and boost the price.
Yeah, I don't know. Another aspect of this that's kind of been overlooked, and I believe we talked about it a little bit, is that part of this is so that the guest worker program, can be ramped up. So, for example, if a farmer needs workers to come in and harvest the field, right? Mm-hmm. That these people would come in on these guest worker visas, but they would effectively be slaves because they couldn't go anywhere else.
Yep. They just had to work at the place.
Right now, if there's an undocumented force of laborers that will show up at your farm if you're paying well enough, right? and you decide that you're going to screw them over and not pay them enough, they just leave and you have nothing. So the market decides whether you have labor or not.
Yep.
But if they change it into the granting of all these guest worker visas with, say, heavy tracking on whoever they let in,
It's going to be impossible.
then you're literally going to have a near slavery economy.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this whole policy is a disaster, and it's going to really hurt small businesses and the economy.
I mean, that's what I think. I feel that I feel it in my business. I have seen less Hispanic business, and some of that are people that I know are here illegally, are citizens.
Yep.
And they're just not going out as much.
Yeah, because they don't want the hassle.
Yeah, they don't want to be detained. They don't want to be thrown to the ground. They don't want to do any of this stuff. Even if they do have so-called papers.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to some questions from the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us anything about this topic or about business in general. We're here to help. So,
Yeah.
Dylan, what do we got?
Do you have any advice for what to do if ICE comes to your business?
If ICE comes to your business, you just have to cooperate and be polite and try not to, rile them up. Otherwise, it just makes everything worse.
Well, I mean, I've actually thought about this because I have a public-facing business, and I don't know how I would react with that. Like one part of me is like, no, I don't want to let these guys in to just harass my customers. On the other hand, like you said, it's like after this poor woman got shot, it's like comply or die.
It really is. Yeah.
And that's how I feel. Like, is there? I've seen videos of restaurants and places of business that have put up signs that said, ICE not welcome, or refusing service, and then the backlash against them and all that. I mean, I would get tremendous backlash here in Oklahoma if I did that.
Mm-hmm.
My honest answer is I just don't know. I really honestly don't know. I don't know.
Well, ICE can just come in too if they have reasonable suspicion that there are illegal immigrants on your property. Like they don't have to have like an actual search warrant. They can just come in.
No, I think that they are supposed to have a search warrant. Now just today, I think there's been news come out that the Department of Homeland Security has put out a memo saying that they believe that ICE can go into homes without a warrant, which previously was not the case and is actually constitutionally still not the case. So I expect that to be challenged. I don't know how it goes with business. Now, if they're chasing someone they believe to be an illegal immigrant and that person goes into a business, maybe that is the type of exigent circumstances where they are allowed to go in. But I don't know. I don't think that ICE is just simply allowed to go into a business on a fishing expedition.
Well, I'm looking at this. This was posted yesterday, and it says federal immigration officers are asserting sweeping power to forcibly enter people's homes without a judge's warrant. According to an internal ICE memo obtained by the Associated Press, which is a sharp reversal of longstanding guidance meant to respect constitutional limits. I mean, the Constitution says that they can't.
Right. The Fourth Amendment says very clearly that, illegal searches and seizures are prohibited. Now, what ICE is trying to say is that their activity is legal, but I don't see how it can be. I don't see how it can be that you can enter a home without a warrant without the exigent circumstances of reasonable suspicion.
Yeah, I agree. I think back to the kind of question at hand is what you do if ICE shows up. I think my only 2 cents of advice, and this is not great advice, so take it with a grain of salt, is just your life is worth more than trying to fight these people at this point. They have sweeping powers. They're going to do whatever they want, and I think we will see court cases.
Is my life worth more than my customer's life?
So if you are protecting your customers in some way, that's maybe a little bit different. If they show up here at my office, there's nobody here to bother with. Like, I'm just going to have to say, oh, okay. But, if they show up at your place and you have a couple people in there that you may think or suspect, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. What are you going to try to bar the door? try to keep them out, sneak them out the side door. We just talked about that one judge got arrested for sneaking people out.
Yeah, I mean, I would be arrested for aiding or hindering or whatever. I mean, they would try to for sure.
I mean, I don't mind getting arrested, but I don't want to get shot. So I think cooperation is really the only thing that we can do, unless somebody has a much better answer than me.
Well, that's exactly what they want,
or
though,
a legal way to fight them.
And that is exactly the crux of the problem. So
it is.
If anybody out there has a some advice on how to handle this, I don't know what it is. But I would say this from a small business perspective. I would say this: leaving your political hat off and how you feel about this, right? There is possibly a case to be made for just being apolitical in this situation and saying, if the police show up at your business, and they say that they have, some good reason to be there, then just cooperate with them and don't make waves, because the ramifications to your business in the eyes of the public could ruin your business. So unless you feel like your ideology is so strong that you're willing to risk your own business and the employment of all of the people who work for you, I would suggest probably just going ahead and complying, even though that's not the way that I would want to do it in my own heart.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I wouldn't want to do it either. But I think that's the only way to do it.
I
mean, you can know your rights, and you have to make sure that they have a warrant or a legal reason to come in and document everything so that you can I think the lawyers deal with it.
Right. I think that's what you should do. You should ask them if they have a warrant. You should, start recording everything.
And you nor your employees have to speak to ICE. You can always remain silent, which is what you should do.
Right.
Say as little as possible.
I have a question, just myself.
Yeah.
If we're looking at, let's say I'm a business owner and my business is heavily reliant on, or I sell things that are more popular to the Hispanic community. Now, I don't employ anybody illegal. I am not illegal myself, but now I can show that my business is taking a significant loss due to the decrease in traffic based upon ICE activity in my area. Is there any legal recourse as a business owner that I have to be able to address that?
Not any legal.
I don't think you do.
You can't sue anybody or try to reclaim lost wages. Insurance certainly wouldn't pay for anything like that.
I mean, you can sue the government, but I don't know that you're going to get very far, because the government is normally indemnified for things that happen in the course of their duty. They have unfortunately qualified immunity that gives them, broad leeway to do things that we would otherwise consider harmful.
The only thing that you can do as a business owner in that circumstance is prepare, gather as much information you can, and try to pivot in some direction that either goes after other markets or makes it so that the Hispanic community feels comfortable, or figure out a way to deliver to their house even, or something, so that they can still purchase your goods.
So you brought up some stuff here. These steps to protect your employees and your business: designate a point person, have a designated representative who will interact with ICE and your legal counsel. That person should be trained on the procedures to follow during an ICE visit. I'm not sure what those. Okay, I guess you would have to make up what the SOPs would be on that.
Mm-hmm.
Request identification, ask for identification from the ICE agents and log their names and badge numbers. Inquire if they have a warrant and review it carefully. Understand the warrant. If they present a warrant, accept it, but clearly state that you do not consent to the search. This preserves your right to challenge it later. If there is no warrant, ICE can only enter public areas of your business. Okay, that's an important one to think about.
That is. I guess you could put some like private area only or employee only.
Yeah, so they can only walk in and go in the space that would normally be open to the public. Okay, that actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Although, we live in a country where you're supposed to be able to refuse service to anyone.
Yeah, I don't know if you're refusing service, but maybe.
Right. Document everything. Keep a detailed record of the visit, including what occurred, who was involved, and any items taken. If computers or devices are seized, request that ICE make copies instead of removing them. Like, are they even allowed to do that? Like, I'm an American business owner and everything. Like, do they even have jurisdiction to do something like that?
You know, this is not has nothing to do with ICE, but somebody that worked for the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation came by my office with a search warrant because they wanted information on a client who may or may not have done something that he shouldn't. And they threatened to seize some stuff from me if I didn't send them all the information that they wanted. And so
Like, they would just take your computers and everything.
So
and then-
I went and talked to my lawyer and made sure that everything was on the up and up, gave him the warrant and everything that they were looking for. My lawyer provided the agent with everything that he needed from them rather than directly from me. But I also had my IT people step up their game to make sure we had backups of everything, and you know, if they came and seized it,
Well, that's good advice
get
right
everything
there.
re-uploaded and ready to go again.
So there you go. In this climate, right? If people with guns show up with a badge and they just start removing stuff, the thing is that, like Scott said, you don't want to get shot over this.
Mm-hmm.
But if those things could, if losing your equipment could severely impact your ability to do business, then one of the things that you should do, if you feel like this is something that could happen, is you should be backing everything up.
Yep.
And making sure that you can be back up and running fairly soon after that.
Well, and like for our system, we're
And-
set up to where we'd only lose like that day's work, and then we'd be able to just get new. I mean, I'd have to buy all new computers and crap, but we'd buy a bunch of new systems and get everything uploaded, and then they'd be able to import everything or upload everything. I'm not sure what the right word is there. But
And I would-
we'd be back up. And
Yeah,
running the
I
next
would
day.
even suggest maybe, looking into how you can encrypt everything so that if it's not opened up correctly, it just all gets encrypted.
Yeah.
Whatever's on your hard drives and they can't get to it.
Yeah, good idea.
Um,
What do we got next? Any other questions?
okay, so hopefully that answers your question. We're not legal. We're not offering anybody any legal advice. So
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
suggest
Good disclaimer.
I would suggest highly that you guys, if this is something that you really think can be something, you should look into the legalities of it. If you have an attorney, I suggest you ask them.
This is a little pivot just back to business questions, but what are the most important metrics to keep track of in your first year of a new business?
It's a good question. It really depends on the business. We call those KPIs, or key performance indicators. Obviously, sales are very important to keep track of. Your kind of mainline expenses. We usually break expenses down into two different categories: variable expenses and fixed costs. So, those are variable costs being, the price of providing the service or making the good, and your fixed costs being just, rent, utilities, administration costs, things that are going to be a monthly expense, whether you sell 100 items or 1,000 items. So those are the things to kind of separate and keep track of from a financial standpoint. But then for each business, for you, you need to figure out what's important. Traffic into your business. If you have a customer facing, we look at your business and we think, how many customers are coming in a day? What is their average ticket price? Things like that. For me, a big cost is customer acquisition. We have to do a lot of advertising, and we bring in customers who end up paying, quite a bit for our service sometimes. So our customer acquisition cost is much higher because our average income per client is higher. So again, it really depends on your business. Is there anything that's important to you when you're looking at your business and performance-wise?
I just look at my bank account and depend on you to tell me whether I'm doing good or not.
Fair. Yeah, having a good accountant
I mean-
solves a lot of those problems. They can tell you all the kind of indicators you need to be aware of.
I mean, for me, the biggest thing to remember, the biggest rule that I've learned to live by, and I've told the story many times about, way back in the very, very beginning of case making and everything, my dad gave me $5,000, and I turned right around and spent it on a lot of leather that I could not even use for my cases because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And so basically all my operating capital evaporated, into a pile of leather that was useless to me. Luckily I was able to sell it at some point in the future and recoup a little bit out of it. I think I got maybe $1,000. But basically it put me in a bind. So the biggest rule that I go by is, revenue is not profit. Sales are not profit. So don't be blinded by your sales and thinking that that's how much money you're making, because it's not. So keep a very close eye on what is left over and what you've got to work with,
Yeah, your net income.
your net income.
So if you look at turtlesmith.com and you're building your business plan, that'll help kind of identify what key performance indicators you need to look for. Obviously, the financial ones are the most important for the first year, making sure you have enough money to get to profitability, because businesses can sometimes take 6 to 18 months to become profitable. Making sure that you're getting enough sales, knowing how much it's costing you to get customers in the door for advertising and stuff. Those are all just common things that every business needs. But then as you're going through your business plan and you're building out, you will be able to identify what the important metrics are for your specific company and your industry. And that all happens when you build your training manual and do your financials and your business plan and all that stuff.
Which, by the way, we really recommend that you go through these exercises. That's really kind of the whole point of why we're here.
Yeah, even if you're
Is to do
already
that.
in business, you should go back to the drawing board and make
Yeah.
sure you have all this stuff and know what you're talking about.
Because I mean, you have people like me who have really had like a 30-year startup in a sense because I just jumped in with no experience and no planning and nothing, right? And people look at me now and they go, "Oh, well, you seem like you're really successful," and they don't look at the 25 years of just utter frustration and ups and downs that we went through, before I finally, luckily, met you and you were able to advise us and help us get on a better path. So now, we are able to analyze those metrics, and we are able to do more things by making wiser choices with our resources.
And an accountant or consultant is certainly helpful to get that moving in the right direction, especially if you're pretty lost or don't understand it. But it is possible to do it yourself. It just takes extra time and extra effort.
And I'm
Which
going
is
to go
worth
ahead
it.
and plug Turtlesmith here because a good idea, a really, really good idea. This isn't just a thing where two talking heads get on here and blow each other. The thing is that we have put up a lot of good information on turtlesmith.com. Is it turtlesmith okay?
No, turtlesmith.com.
Thank you. Because I know there was another Turtlesmith out there that was like a domain.
Our
that we were looking at.
socials are at Turtlesmith okay.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, turtlesmith.com, right, where we have really good detailed information, as well as our first season.
Mm-hmm.
We go into detail on each of these things, So if you're considering building a business, or you're already in business and you think that you need to kind of tighten up, it really is worth it to go and look at those episodes and go look at this information that we have meticulously crafted and put up there for you to be able to have a good solid foundation when you start. One of our mottos is get rich slow. And that sounds weird, but it's the opposite of the get rich quick scheme.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of people think, right?
Yeah, building a solid foundation, planning properly, and executing correctly.
So
Even terrible business ideas executed really well can do fine. They do much better than a great idea executed poorly.
Exactly. We've all seen these businesses that look like they're dingy and grungy and whatever, and yet they exist year after year after year
Because they have good planning.
and they have good planning. They have good financial management. Under the hood, they have one of those big block V8s that's perfectly tuned.
Yeah, there you go.
But it looks like a soccer mom van that's been through a war,
Yeah.
and it'll blow you away at the light.
Yep. What's the next question?
How often should you begin doing financial reporting? Is that something you need to do consistently throughout the year?
Oh, yeah. Your financial, you should be doing your books every day, every week. You should be working on them to make sure that they're always consistent
What are books?
and up to date. Financial books, yeah. As far as reporting, like actual reporting to like the government and stuff like that, that all depends on what you're doing. There's some that are monthly, like sales tax reports are monthly. There's some that are quarterly, like payroll reports. And there's some stuff that's annually, like tax returns and stuff. But keeping up with your books and making sure that you have good financial statements should be an ongoing thing. You should be doing it every single day, every single week. Every month, you should be reviewing what happened the month before. There's a thing too that a lot of small businesses do not pay attention to, which is cash flow management, completely separate
That's
from
what I was just talking about.
completely
Yeah.
separate from your sales and expenses. Cash flow management, make sure you have enough money to pay all your bills. There's a thing we talk about called the rolling 13-week cash flow forecast. You do that every week. You just keep adding the next week on as a week passes. And so keeping up with that stuff is an ongoing battle that should be done constantly and can be solved easily by hiring an accountant.
So here's why this is important, right? Not only so that you know how much money you have available to you to just pay your normal bills and pay your employees and make payroll and all that, but it also means that you know where you're at for your credit worthiness, for your ability to go to a bank and get a loan. There may be an opportunity that comes up for you to buy a piece of equipment, something like that. You know, your ability to get credit cards or loans from other sources. And that is important, you know, so that you can leverage all of that if you know the status of your business and where exactly you are and what you can forecast.
Yeah. And you know, companies that are struggling or trying to get off the ground or maybe not making their sales that they needed or projected, they are paying attention to this a lot more than companies that are successful. And one of the kind of sayings in business is cash hides flaws. So if you're being successful, like you, for example, you have been very successful over the last 20 years. Your business made a lot of money, but there are probably a bunch of times where not knowing your numbers and not having a good plan has lost you a big chunk of change. And you might not even have realized it
100%.
because you weren't doing the books at the time. And so this is not just for companies who are starting up. This is not just for companies who are struggling with their cash flow. All companies, big or small, should have great books and great financials and somebody to talk to who's a third party, you know, an accountant, somebody who's another friend in business, somebody to look at it because they can pinpoint things that maybe you're too close to see, show you where you're missing things, show you where you're losing money.
I have a question about that. So a lot of times I'll see like an advertisement on Facebook or something about like some service that'll go through all your subscriptions and see if you're like double subscribed to this or that or whatever. Do accountants routinely like have a service where they kind of look through all the piddly outgoing expenses and try to identify ones that are not really necessary?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we look through those. Absolutely. So when I do books for most people, we have what's called a general ledger. I mean, it literally shows every single transaction in every category. And we'll run through that, you know, every month or quarter or year, depending on the client. And we'll look at stuff and we'll say, why are you spending so much money on subscriptions? You know, we just had a meeting last week with a client. I'm asking him why he spends $2,500 a year on Adobe products when he can get an unlimited subscription for $500. And that's all he needs. So he's spending an extra $2,000 a year on subscriptions because he bought a bunch more that he didn't need.
Can you, in your capacity as an accountant, prepare a report for me that tells my daughters that we're spending way too much on Starbucks?
I can, but I don't go through your personal financials. I don't go through your business stuff. So, but I can if you want. If you want me to look through, I can show you exactly how much you spend on Starbucks.
Yeah, tell them we're on the verge. Tell them we're on the verge of bankruptcy.
And crumble cookies and all that stuff. Yeah. You know what we ought to do is you ought to have your daughters come in here and I'll show them how I do it and make them do it. Then they can realize that every month they're going to have to come in and enter every single Starbucks transaction into an Excel spreadsheet. And so when they think about going to Starbucks, they're also going to think, well, crap, I got to enter that into the system now too. A little extra work every time they get a Starbucks.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to sway them.
You don't think so?
Getting them to come in and do the work is the first thing.
Yeah, there you go.
I tell you what, my daughters are too spoiled. It's crazy.
They'll be shocked when they see how much they spend on stuff. If you really just go through your finances, it can be a little eye-opening on where you spend your money.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
What are the most common red flags you see in new business owners?
I don't want to call anybody out. We both know the guy, and he has come to us many times. His business plan and his pitch to us is always, if I can capture a percentage of this market, the market is 12 billion strong. If I can get 2% of the market, we'll be rich. Or I'm selling my product for $100 a month. If I can just find somebody to get on this subscription, if we can find 100 people, we'll make $100,000 a month. People who talk about the top line revenue is the biggest red flag for me in any pitch. That is something that I want to see in your projection because I know how much you're doing, but without all of the necessary expenses, costs of goods, fixed costs, monthly cash burn, things like that, it doesn't mean anything.
I cannot remember the number of people who put a ton of money and time into inventing some gadget or other that they thought they would be rich on if they could just capture 1% of the billiard market. There used to be it probably still is, the Sporting Goods Marketing Association would do a survey every year of the top most participation sports in America. Now, basketball is usually number one, but pool is often like number 2 or 3 or somewhere in the top 5, right?
Right.
And at one point, they had estimated that 30 million people a year play pool each year. However, when you drill down into the actual survey and the statistic, it turns out that they're saying that in their estimation, 30 million people in America play pool at least once a year.
Right.
Which includes going to the bar and shooting a game of pool.
So of the 30 million, 28 are casual players who play
It's like super casual.
Right.
Like will never ever purchase anything to do with pool except putting $1 in a pool table once a year.
Right.
And yet this statistic alone has probably been responsible for a very conservative estimate of at least $10 million worth of investment into gadgetry.
Right.
That has fizzled out and failed because there's no market for it.
Right. So really, all the other red flags are along the same vein. It's just you've done a fraction of the research that you actually need to do.
Yeah.
And when somebody, and I'm not even calling myself sophisticated, but if somebody who has started a business before, and if you actually talk to sophisticated investors who really know their stuff, way better than us even, they're going to ask you a couple questions. And if you don't know the answers right away, that's just the end. Like you don't have a second chance. And so when somebody asks, what's your customer acquisition cost? What's your monthly cash burn? What are your, employee costs? What are all those things? If you don't know those right off the top of your head, you might as well just not have a business.
So the question I have then is most people who are in small business, even in small business right now, probably don't know those terms. They don't know the answers to those questions.
All of it is available with just building a business plan.
Right. I get that. So what we're saying is that the same sort of things that we would think of as standard questions for some kind of venture capitalist deal, right, should also apply to small businesses because, you need to know these numbers.
These are not venture capital questions. They are basic questions for any business and any investor. The bank will want to know most of these questions if you try to take a loan. Your dad will want to know if you're trying to borrow some money from him, These are just regular questions. They're not even tough ones, A venture capital firm or a big business looking to invest are going to have way tougher questions, and sometimes you won't know the answer or I won't even know the answer and I'll have to go drill down and figure them out.
40,000. Is that my monthly cash burn?
Oh, close. A little bit more.
Okay. Because I was thinking I don't even know the answers to these questions.
Yeah, well, but
I'm sitting here telling people they should know it, and I don't know if I know it, but I
but
have you who knows it.
That's the thing is you do know it, and we can have a meeting about it. We can talk about it. We can get it all done. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be you. If you're an entrepreneur and an inventor, and you just have no thoughts for numbers or no headspace to handle that stuff, that is okay. Because one of our biggest kind of things that we push towards people is hire for your weaknesses. So find somebody who does know that stuff. Find somebody who can help you out and put it together. Because, creative people or makers, this is not in their wheelhouse, and that is okay. I'm not a creative person or a maker, but I'm very good at numbers.
Right. And that is also some of the advice that is really important. I mean, yes, we can say you should know these numbers, and especially when you're starting your business in the first year, because the question was, what are the key metrics in your first year?
Well, that was 3 questions.
3 questions
ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm kind of getting mixed up. But even if you are a creative like me, it does pay to have someone around you who can accurately record the numbers, bookkeeping and accounting, and pay attention when you have the meetings about it so that you have it in your mind and you kind of know where you're at. Because it frees you up to be more creative once you know the numbers.
Yep.
You know, it really does. Because otherwise, remember when I first came to you, and I'll never get tired of telling the story, but literally within the first 3 or 4 sentences when I walked in, I was like, can you keep me out of jail?
It's an unbelievably common statement that I hear too.
You know,
So,
and it wasn't because I felt like a criminal. It's because I knew that I hadn't done my taxes in a couple of years. We had the money, but I also just was generally apprehensive about it. You know, like, is this going to be something like, well, how does it work? Is this something where the sheriff just shows up one day and
Right.
says, this is our house now?
yeah, a lot of people think that.
And, you know, it's turned out to be not quite as bad as that, but you also don't want to let it ever get to that point because that point will come eventually if nothing is done.
Right. If nothing is done. Yeah. Don't stick your head in the sand. You want to get those things taken care of. But I think that's it for this week, man.
All right.
Find us turtlesmith.com, at turtlesmithok at all of our socials. We have our business plan competition going on right now, so check it out. Submit us a business plan. You can win $1,000 that we're giving away.
Get that money.
Any final thoughts?
No, just keep on trucking, go to Turtlesmith and, you know, take advantage of all the great information that we have there.
And if you're catching this episode later and you have a question, just any general question about business, send it to us. You can check us out. You hit us up on our socials, DM us or whatever. Ask your question. We'll answer it on the next one.
Oh, and hey, like and subscribe, please.
Yeah, definitely do that.
I'm sorry. We got to ask that because that's how we get, you know, going. We're not trying to get rich on YouTube here, although that wouldn't be a bad thing. But really, honestly, we just want to get this information out to more people. So if you like and subscribe, that helps us help other people.
Yep. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.